Hi everyone, happy Friday. My name is Dana and welcome to our Cloud Lunch and Learn sessions. So today we have our first session of governance and automation with Vuka Singh over here, who will be explaining about how to get you started with this. So I'll hand it over to you now.
Okay, thanks Dana for the lovely introduction. Right, so hello everyone. My name is Vuka Singh. And we will have every Friday of October, we are going to have a session that is related in some way to governance and automation. And during those sessions, I would like to cover like basically entire Azure governance tools and processes that are available to us and show how that goes hand in hand with a good design of Azure Landing Zone. And we will also talk about how automation can help us with keeping up our environment consistent, and we will demonstrate some tools during those 5 sessions. I hope everyone can hear me. I hope everyone can see the screen.
Sure we can at the moment.
Okay, perfect. My name is Vukaš Terzic. I've been on Cloud Lunch and Learn before, so some of you might remember me from some other automation-related session. I work as a cloud solution architect for a company that is based in Czech Republic. But because I'm able to work remotely, and I was just saying that to Dana a few moments earlier, my family and I are traveling most of the time, and we are currently on an island in Greece. A few months back, I was also recognized as a Microsoft Azure MVP. And I work with Azure for like, I think 5 or 6 years now. And Azure architecture and Azure governance is something that I do all day for different clients we have. And I have a great passion for automation in general. So these are my favorite topics. And I'm glad that I will be able to share it with you on these talks. Today's session is called Azure Governance and Automation, and it's a little bit different from the rest of the series. It's not going to be that much practical, but the following ones will be mostly practical demos, so you don't need to worry about seeing too many slides. Today's one is still a very important session because we will discuss why are these disciplines important and how they can help you to start with. So I already mentioned the term Azure Governance, like I think 5 times in this introduction, but what it is actually, what Azure Governance is, and what is the infrastructure as code. I'm not actually going to tell you the definition of it, what it is, but I want to show you the real world example, something that I come across when working with our customers. I'm sure that some of you already have like good understanding of it, but or at least know or heard about it. But let's see how that works in the real life. There are many reasons why companies decide to go to or adopt the cloud, and there are some like triggering events that initiate adoption of the cloud. I put everything here on one slide just for you to like better understand. And some of it can be, for example, we have a data center, the contract is expiring, or we have a hardware that has expiring like warranty or something like that. We can also have like a run out of resources in on-premises, and we want to move or adopt the cloud so we can quickly extend our resources. Sometimes it can be acquisition of a different company and they're joining together in Azure. Sometimes we have some like licensing things that are expiring. We are looking into reducing our internal team of people, or we want to innovate and use some things that are available in the cloud and not available to us in on-premises. And also sometimes it can be just like the security reasons, because we are looking into improving our security using different methods. And one of the also very often things why we want to look into the cloud or using the cloud is that we want to optimize cost or maybe increase the cash flow. We don't want to put on large investment, but we want to switch over to OPEX model, which allows us to pay for what we use and not make a big investment at first. And as you can see, most of these have some date or a deadline. And what usually happens in the real world with our clients is that companies want to start using Azure resources quickly. And it's because they want to do a quick lift and shift migration and move everything so they can close their data center, or they run out of resources on premises and they want to extend their capacities using Azure resources instead of buying new servers. And that's great. Those are all valid reasons. And luckily, cloud is very, it's super flexible and quick migration and adoption is possible. But what usually happens when this situation comes, and I've seen that so many times that I've lost the count now, is that Azure tenant is created, great. Local admins of the local environment, usually without too much cloud experience or no cloud experience at all, are given owner access to the subscription, and they created like a network connectivity, maybe ExpressRoute, maybe site-to-site VPN or something like that between on-premises and Azure, and started migration and deploying new services. And yeah, that's what they needed to do. That was their job, and they were doing it for the first time, and they did a great job. They made a connection. They started migrating things. But that's not enough. And usually stop there. They just connect everything and they start using it as come. But quickly they find out that this usage is completely different. And once they start using it, it becomes even worse because every application team in the company is now creating their apps, creating their resources, click, 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 and we suddenly have a bunch of resources in Azure. And that's great. That's what the cloud is there for. I mean, that's one great thing in the cloud, that we don't have to wait for 6 months to get a new server. We can have it in 5 minutes, and not just one. We can have as many as we want. But the problem here is that there are no rules, right? All those resources we create, they have different names. They have a different, maybe they are put in the different regions. They have different sizes, and that creates like uncontrolled environment, and everyone is losing the track what's in there, right? This usually doesn't happen in on-premises. If you have your own, like let's say some cluster or something, and you have a couple of physical servers, when you are creating virtual machines, it's usually first not that fast, and second, in Azure you create so many different types of resources, which is very different approach than in on-premises. You create one virtual machine, you just create one object. If you do it in Azure, you will create like 5 objects maybe, and each of those resources, they need to have a name. Also, of course, in Azure, you pay for what you use. So what can happen is that people can start creating things and then forgot to shut them down or forgot to remove them. And we don't know, because the way how this is done, we don't know if those resources are still needed or not. Users don't have a limitation of what they can create. So what it can happen is that someone turns on some like very expensive service, I don't know, like DDoS protection. It's just one checkbox. You turn it on and you leave it on, and then in the end of the month you find out that you spent thousands of dollars. Or you turn on the virtual, it's very expensive, and you just leave it running. So this uncontrolled environment can definitely increase the cost. What else can happen is that, of course, when the cost goes up, we want to save, so we start deleting things. But because there is no way to find out who is the owner of the resource, or if it's needed, or we find out that it was off for a month, so it's probably not needed anymore, and so we deleted it. And then we delete something that we needed. Another issue with this is, of course, that we can run into many different compliance issues. That can be something related to GDPR, something related to data protection. We can be a company, like a public company, that according to some compliance and regulations, need to keep all the data inside of the European Union. And this is like very often required, like for schools and public companies and so on. And without the control, what can happen is that someone will spin up file server in somewhere over in Southeast Asia and deploy it there. And at that moment, your data physically left the European Union. And I can continue with those examples as like for a day. You know, there is a lot of things that can go wrong, and we will focus more on that in the next Friday session, that will be focused on actually how to fix those things and how to prevent them from happening. But unfortunately, this is not something that I'm making up. It's a reality for most of the companies. And when the companies start the cloud adoption on their own, without support of like Microsoft or a Microsoft partner, or without enough internal skills, this is what happens. And so how this should be done instead? And luckily, this is something that Microsoft as a company, as a public cloud provider, also noticed in the customers, and they gave us a lot of tools, a lot of ways to prevent those things from happening without the need to lose the flexibility and speed of cloud developments. And some of those I want to speak about today, and that's what this session is about. And how to put this in a sentence is that you don't need everything. You don't need everything like to configure immediately. And if you are already using Azure and you notice those things happening, it's never too late to stop it. You might not be able to create a perfect environment because some things in Azure were already created, and some things cannot be renamed or it cannot be reconfigured, so you might need to delete it, and you don't want to do that, so you will keep it. But from now on, you can of course prevent those things from happening, and you are given tools for it. And during these 5 sessions, I would like to show you most of those tools and how to apply some basic design principles into your environment. So first thing we have here is something called Cloud Adoption Framework. So I can go on and speak about Cloud Adoption Framework for a week. And it's something that I actually rely on as a cloud architect. I rely on heavily. And what that is, basically, that is a bunch of best practices and guides that are written by Microsoft, but not just Microsoft, also Microsoft partners and customers. And it's an open source framework that anyone can participate in. So if you have something, you can create a pull request and try to add it. And it's not here just to show us how to do things. It's also here show us what, the things that we should not do, and to avoid mistakes and bad decisions. And I think personally that's the best part of it, because sometimes you don't realize the things that can go wrong. And here we have guides to help us. Good thing about it, about the CAF, is that you don't have to consume it like a book from beginning to end. It's a framework that consists of like design examples, best practices, guides, explanation why and when you should use this scenario and when you should be using this scenario. And it also contains some tools. Some of those tools are for assessment, so you can easily do assessment of your current environment or your current stage in the migration process or cloud adoption process. And you can find where you are and jump into like the place where you are, and don't read everything from beginning. You don't need to consume all the things that you already have designed, but it can help you like from very beginning when you are defining the strategy in the company, trying to understand what are the business goals and what do you want to achieve, all the way through the operation, where it can help you better like operate and optimize your cloud usage day to day. So you don't have to be at the beginning of migration. That was just my example. If you're already using Azure, believe me, Cloud Adoption Framework can still help you with some, at least small things. Where you can find it on this URL, akka.ms/caf. And it's basically a docs page with all those things in it. Can go maybe, yeah. So let's cover those stages of the cloud adoption framework. They are not. What's important to understand is that it's trying, the cloud adoption framework as it is trying to define all those different stages, but you don't have to follow one road. There are always different options and different migration scenarios, different operation scenarios, and not everything will be needed for you, but definitely is a very useful tool. And so let's cover this migration from beginning to end, just so you can get a better overview of those stages. So in the first stage, that's the stage when you are still not in Azure. It's called define strategy. And during this stage, you are thinking about adopting the cloud. Something happened, maybe you need like optimize cost, or your data center is expiring, and so now you are thinking about Azure. It's important to communicate this throughout the entire company. This is not something that IT guys can decide, and the reason for that is the cloud adoption will not just change the way you do your IT. It should not be looked into like I'm just moving my servers from on-premises to cloud, and the only benefit is I'm not going to be patching those servers and unplugging the cables or whatever. No, this change actually changes everything in the way how you work with the IT, and how and there are many more benefits that the company can actually benefit from. And so for that reason, in the first stage, you have to understand what do you want to get from it, and then of course what will that bring to your business. So is the business outcome, I don't know, able to take care of our IT, or is the business outcome we will be able to use like super modern technologies like I don't know, artificial intelligence and big data and so on, and use those tools that are available to us. It will be really expensive and maybe impossible to develop that in-house on your own data center, or maybe you just want to change the cash flow and so on. So there are many business positive and possible business outcomes, and so this is something that's done in the design or define strategy phase, and it's done during the entire or across the entire company, not just in IT, not just in high management. Everyone has to get involved. And so Cloud Adoption Framework here in this stage gives you the right tools and right guides, so you can go and speak to your managers, to your stakeholders, and convince them, not like convince them to go to the cloud, but explain them why is the cloud good and what it can bring you, and how what you can achieve from it, and how you can measure that. So that's the first stage. And then when that's done, you get the finances, at least some like rough budget, project is prioritized, you can start actually planning the migration. And so this is very important stage. In this, you start actually of the migration, you start assessing what you have. So this can be done manually or by using some tools, and you will actually find out what you have in your environment, think in the process of what you need to migrate. Maybe you will find out that something doesn't need to be migrated. Maybe if you have time, if this is not like, let's do quick lift and shift, but if you have time, you'll optimize it, some applications or workflows right now. But important, what you need to get from this is that you will have a good understanding of what will be running in your cloud and how much will that cost. And with this data, you go back again to your stakeholders, they look at it, they find out if that's good for a company or not. And if they say yes, then you are basically in process already. What that means for you? Well, it means that you can start with a skill assessment. This is one of the very often overlooked stages where people are not properly trained. What we like to do when we come to the company that is trying to adopt Azure is to perform like a skills readiness assessment, and you have tools in a cloud adoption framework that can help you with that. And once that's done, then we know what people are missing, what skills they are missing, and we can schedule some trainings or show them where they can learn it and what certifications they need and so on. And that, of course, also depends if the company is going to take care of their cloud operations on their own, or are they going to, I don't know, outsource it or something like that. And then most important phase for us, and that's why what today's talk about is the ready phase. So this is where things start, when we start implementing things. And basically we will start creating like design documentations. We now know what we are migrating, we know how much that it will cost, we know what skills we need, and people are like already acquiring those skills. And we need to start migrating. And then this is also where companies fail, because they don't prepare their environment. And why is that important? Because there is something called in Azure called Landing Zone. That's like a term that didn't exist before. It's just somehow Microsoft likes to call your initial Azure environment. And basically, when you have an Azure subscription, first you have to think about things like management groups, how many subscriptions I need, is it everything going to be one or are going to be multiple, in which regions they are going to be, who is going to have access to what. And this is something that can have a big impact on how your cloud is cost optimized, performance optimized, and also like how your customers can access your resources and so on. And so if you overlook this and start creating everything in one subscription, that may end up being okay for you, but in some cases that's not the best scenario. Maybe you have to, it's better for you to have few of them and so on. And Cloud Adoption Framework for this provides some guides, also provides examples and finished actually landing zones that you can just deploy from GitHub and deploy them into your Azure. So that's great. Second part of the landing zone, of course, is networking. You have to think about networking part, and then also like security and so on. I will speak about landing zone more in depth just after this. And once you have that ready, then you can apply some governance on it. which you can see here. It doesn't go in order, but that's what I said, that those migration scenarios can be different. Governance is very important. We will also cover it soon. And then when you are ready, then you are actually starting migration. That's called, the phase is called adopt. And this is the phase that will guide you through the migration of your resources to Azure. It shows you how to use tools, which tools to use for assessment, which tools to use for migration. It also explains some, the Cloud Adoption Framework explains some very important things that we often overlook. And it helps you also not just like migrate one-to-one, but innovate things, optimize it to be like better cost optimized for usage in cloud, or how to, what are the options, how you can maybe like refactor your applications and so on. So everything is well documented there. And then after the migration process is done, that never, like, it's not good thing to understand about cloud, and CAF can help you with that, is that once you are in cloud, you're far from over. It's never-ending story. You have to keep optimizing things and making them better and better and better. Why is that important? It's because like optimizing application from using like virtual machine to using the platform service will of course bring you, in most cases, reduce the cost, and also reduce the time that you spend maintaining it. You don't have to update the virtual machine to fix the errors in Windows and so on, because that's done for Microsoft side, and you are only using it as a service. So there are many ways that you can optimize your cloud environment, and this is just one of them. And the adopt phase also explain those, and there are also even some like decision diagrams that you can see in the Cloud Adoption Framework that can help you make those decisions or even present them to your stakeholders. And then that's the management phases, that like optimization, when you are basically running your operations in cloud, then you continue to optimize everything to make everything more secure, make everything more cost optimized, make everything more performance optimized. Maybe you will find out that something can be done better. Also, Microsoft Ignite every year brings many of the new features that can be maybe interested to you, and you want to change things and so on. So that's why Cloud Adoption Framework is actually useful to everyone, from people that are thinking about Azure to people that are already running Azure. And this was just a short summary explaining what it is. On the link that we provided in the beginning, you can find more. Also, you can go just to this link, akms/caf, and that will take you directly there. Next thing that we have in our hands to fight or to keep our cloud better and more under control is Azure Governance and its tools. So preventing users from like doing things in a wrong way, it will be very difficult. Like, let's be honest, like enforcing, for example, naming policy when we have like 1,000 different resource types in Azure will be almost impossible. You will not be able to teach everyone to remember all those naming policies and naming standards you came up with, or like prevent people from making a mistake even. And also it will take a lot of time and effort to teach people all those things. And so companies often like employ someone who can is like responsible for it, and that one person or a team of people sometimes take care of those things. But then, you know, we lose some speed, and we can create a bottleneck there. So a better way of doing that is using some tools. And I was mentioning those problems like cloud not being secure. I was mentioning problems that we didn't know what we have in the cloud, what kind of like resources we have, who they belong to, when they were created, are they in good health, are there any errors? We don't know those things if we don't actively look for them. I was also mentioning that we can like accidentally delete something, that we don't know who is the owner of the application, that we don't know who is to which like team this belongs to, who is paying for it. That's also like the often issue that someone creates something in Azure and then we don't, and then there is like one invoice in the end, but we don't know how to split those things so different cost centers can cover like their part of the share. Like it will be really difficult for someone to maintain those things, and also there is always possibility of just making a mistake in a name, mistake in a region, mistake in a VM size, or anything like that. And that mistake can often be fixed if that person realizes that immediately. They can delete the resource or something like that and do it again. But sometimes they don't realize it, sometimes they don't like notice it, and they leave it, and then it stays there forever. And better way of doing that is, of course, implementing some automatic tools that will do this keeping of those resources in a way that we want them to be for us. And those tools are, for example, implementation of role-based access control. Also, we can settings and keep everything consistent. Use Azure tags that will help us to document everything and be aware who is doing what, or what belongs to who is responsible for what, who created it. Tags can also help us with splitting the billing. Then we can use like different tools to probably implement environment in a way that we want it to be, and not just leave to people or to users to do it in that way. I was missing here one extra thing, and so to summarize the Azure governance tools, that's something that we'll be covering next session, next Friday. And I don't want to go too much in depth with those tools today because we don't have time for that. But Azure governance, the importance of Azure governance is that if we implement things properly, if we start with the landing zone and we implement our landing zone properly, which will contain good organization of resources and their scopes. By that I mean a management group. By that I also mean subscriptions, inside of them resource groups, inside of the resources, on how to apply airbag roles on these. If we properly configure our networks and our network connections between subscriptions, if we implement security, not just like basic security, but also we implement some security baseline, we configure it according to our compliance requirements, and secure the cloud in a way that we would secure our on-premises environment. Then we get environment on which we can also apply those things, like, for example, Azure policy can help us limit the region in which we want to use it. So if the requirement is that the data cannot leave European Union, we will only allow regions that are in European Union. In best case scenario, we will just allow two, one the primary and then the region pair for DR and so on, and everything else will be forbidden, and then user will not be allowed or will not be able to make a mistake. I hope that makes sense. And then we can use, for example, resource graph to quickly find out what's going on, to create some dashboards, to create some notifications in logs, and that will, of course, allow us to help optimize performance, help optimize even the cost, and also if we forbid them some virtual machines that are very expensive, then they will not be able to do it, and that will potentially save us from those expensive mistakes. And why is also like having that also important? For one very simple reason, if we have an environment in Azure that is not organized at all, and it doesn't use any of these features, then that can work for a small environment when we have like a couple of VMs and a couple of services. But it's impossible to scale that. And I've often seen that a company started using Azure, they started to like the speed and all the new functionalities, and they grow. And they grow and grow and grow. And from a couple of VMs that they just deployed to test it, they went to a couple of hundreds of like services and virtual machines. And well-prepared environment will work well for one VM and for 1,000 VMs, because you have all those rules and everything is deployed in the same fashion. And that's why having good landing zone and applying Azure governance is important. So I hope that makes sense. Didn't see any questions coming from you guys, so don't be afraid to ask. And one last thing that I would like to cover here is the importance of automation. And automation in Azure can also help us in a way that, let's take it the opposite way. So in on-premises, usually what like IT admins, server admins used to use automation for is to automate some tasks they use. So you can automate, like, I don't know, create a scheduled task that will, for example, create new users in Active Directory. So you take like export from HR system and you run your script and it creates those users for you, right? Automation task saved you a lot of time. Perfect. But in Azure, you can use automation for like much more. And I'm not talking about now using the automation like in Azure Automation account where you can schedule tasks and do things, and not even actually Azure DevOps. That is like a different level of automation that can be used not just for your apps, but also for like day-to-day tasks. What I mean here mostly in the combination with Azure Governance and deploying those tools is automation in a form of infrastructure as a service. Before I jump into that, just like there are other things that are called in Azure called automation, like you can use the automation, for example, to update your Windows and Linux machines. It's called Azure Update Management. You can use it also automation to maybe like help you optimize the cost. So you can schedule the turning off of virtual machines and turning them on when there is a business hours. And so this will, of course, optimize your cost because you only pay for something that you use. You can also use automation, let's say, to like create an inventory of your Azure services and maybe like track changes and so on. So there are very like different ways how automation can help you with optimizing your cloud and running your cloud. But for you, like those are the things that are usually there for you, ready in some way, that you can maybe turn on with a simple click. or maybe deploy it from a GitHub. But there are also like infrastructure as a code, which is a big part of the day-to-day Azure operations for me. And I don't know how many of you guys now are actively using anything, like infrastructure as a code. What I like to do, and what I like to explain to all my customers that is good for them, is to not start creating things in Azure by clicking, but actually to create infrastructure as a code templates, and those can be, for example, ARM templates. And deploy your infrastructure from code. Just for you quickly, explanation, ARM templates is basically a text file in which you define your infrastructure. So you can say that my server is this size, it has this much memory, this much disk space, it's in this region. And so basically you define all those parameters for your server and then use automation to deploy it for you. And that's a great thing because first of all, you can use that template as a documentation, and you can keep it as a as a disaster recovery solution as well, because if something goes wrong, something like you delete something, you are able in a few clicks to deploy like entire. Also, infrastructure as a code can be used to deploy and delete and destroy different environments, like for example, for testing purposes, you can immediately create exact copy of your production environment in some separate network and have it for testing and then destroy it. You can also have it as a part of the process for your, let's say, someone wants to create a new application and you are not going to give the developer the rights to click and delete and create something they think they need, but you can do it with one click from this template, and each application can have exactly the same configuration and so on. So I like using infrastructure as a code, and this is basically the basic definition of infrastructure as a code. And we will be covering some of that and focusing on some of that during this series. If you have any questions and maybe you want to go deeper in some of it, I think our last session is introduction to ARM templates. We cannot cover everything in 1 hour, but if you have any questions, this is one of my favorite things to do. So you can like find me on Twitter or anywhere else and get in touch. I'll be happy to help you. Okay. So do we have any questions that we didn't answer now? Let's take a look. Okay, I see a few comments. Thank you, Marco. I don't see any direct questions to me. Don't worry if you missed the question and you think of it later. Don't be afraid. Find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, anywhere, and I'll be happy to help.
Thank you so much for that session. That was great. And oh, I think someone just asked, can you update the new features with ARM?
Yeah, sure. So the ARM templates basically declare your environment. And so if you want to change something in a configuration, you can execute it and change your configuration with an ARM template. It's not like typically you would keep your ARM templates somewhere in your source repository with your application, and then next time you deploy your application, it will read like the latest and greatest version of it. But you can also have it as use it as a way to change your current settings, so you don't go and, for example, I don't know, add another IIS server to your farm, but you can do that change in the ARM template and then deploy it, and it will not change the things that were already there, but you can, but it will add the new feature and so on. That's one of the things. Thank you, CJ, for. I hope I'm saying the right name for the question. I will talk more about that in the last Friday of October session.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any other questions? Or if you don't want to write in the chat, you can also raise your hand or just speak directly by unmuting yourselves.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, there was just a recent announcement about improvements to the ARM, making it probably a bit more idempotent, because one of the weaknesses around ARM was it doesn't always stand up to repeat use, reuse.
Yeah, there was announcement, but the bigger announcement than that is that ARM as such are being replaced by something called Project Bitsep, ARM Bitsep, and it's something that is more easy to read and more easy to understand for people that are not experts in ARM templates. So I think that's the way it will go. But that's still in the early version, and you can already start using that Project Bitsep if you find it on GitHub, and you can start deploying things with it. But still in early stage, and at this moment, ARMs are still supported thing or preferred thing.
Yeah, and I also noticed spotted quite a lot of people on Channel 9 talking about Terraform, which is actually installed natively into your Cloud Shell.
Yeah, Terraform is another thing that I like to use, and I wish I'm more skilled in it. I'm planning to take also some certification in Terraform. Terraform is a great tool for infrastructure as a code. It's not non-Microsoft. It's by HashiCorp, and they currently support more features, and it's. I'm not expert in it, so I cannot speak too much about it. But as far as I experienced, Terraform is another thing, and more clients are actually opting for infrastructure as a code with Terraform.
Yeah, it's just good to have know your alternate technologies when you're making choices about tooling. So
yeah, definitely. I was going to mention that in that session for sure, and add some comparison. But thank you for bringing that now.
Does anyone else have any other questions, or if you had any other questions as well, Charlie?
No, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Perfect. So thanks everyone, and again, thank you for the amazing session there. On the screen, you'll see we are promoting our Ideathon, and I'll put the link here in the chat in very large font. So we're running a session on trying to get everyone into a one-day Ideathon session where you can work in teams and solve real-life problems in a very short amount of time. And it's a competition, so you do get prizes if you win for an innovative solution or something like that. So please do sign up if you're free that day and if you're interested, because you can work with some really great team members and try to build your own cloud solution that has no, it's not your day-to-day job. So it should be a lot more fun. So thank you guys so much. And I'm actually going to also put down a link here for our Microsoft forum for survey so that you can leave any feedback that you'd like about this session here. Everything is very laggy right now, so. Apologies, I think I might be lagging out. Okay, it's not letting me send anything more in the chat, but okay.
I can try that.
Let me see. Oh, I got it.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. So if you guys can leave us some feedback, it's very short. It'll take you less than a minute just on the session. And for our next session, we will be having, on Monday, we're actually kicking off our new series for Azure Fundamentals series. Presumably, you guys seem to know cloud quite a bit, so it may not be the series for you on Monday. But of course, the next Friday, we'll be having our second session of governance and automation. So please do come back, and thank you everyone for coming, and thank you again for having this session with us.
Okay. Thanks, Dana, for a great cooperation here, and everyone for joining us. Thank you.